He said, hey, I've heard of this event and I think you'd be really good at it. And I was like, okay, cool, sure. First started pushing sleds when I was 17. Just doing it for me because I loved it. And not competing so much. And I started really running a lot. Started really running some of the best times of my life. Crazy amounts of walking lunges and prowler sleds, hand over hand sled pulls, and a lot of that stuff really at a pretty young age.
Meg Jacoby, you are the fastest woman at Hyrox. It's
For now.
For now. Exactly. And I'm going to talk about that. I actually do want to talk about where you think those times are going, because I think it's like really important. I think that we haven't even seen like where the top is. Like,
definitely.
Is, right?
Yeah.
But you got to, what was it, 58?
Yes.
Your time? What a nice round number.
Yeah.
Right?
I really like that. Right?
Yeah, we do like that.
Yep.
But that was it like, how many events in were you in, like at that point when you hit that world record?
Yeah. I think I had done 4 races at that point. Yes, 4 solo races and 1 doubles race in Sweden. So that was my 6th race altogether. But a doubles is a little bit different, and also same, like, especially on your mind, your brain, you have a person also helping count and keep track of things. It's a different output. So really more like 4 solo races. And it was a goal of mine this year to break 60 minutes. I knew I could. I knew I was close. My second race, I was 61 high. And I was like, okay, like I'm going to get to 60 by the end of the season was my goal. And yeah, it just like all came together. I executed my race plan perfectly. And that's such a huge part of this. And then I didn't execute my race plan perfectly at World Championships. So there's still a lot of learning curve in all of this for sure.
Still a really fast event though.
Yes.
Right?
That was, even at Worlds, that was my 2nd fastest time ever. And it's the 3rd fastest time ever in Hyrox history. So I can't be too upset about it.
No, you can't be upset at all about it. I mean, come on, you're right there in front. You're with Lauren Weeks.
Yeah.
An absolute beast in her own right?
Yeah.
You guys shared a really special moment on stage at the end, right? At that moment, like, what were you guys talking about? Because we couldn't really hear it, but we could see you guys. There was so much love like going on at that time. What were you saying?
Lauren and I think we're both mothers. I think we have an unbelievable level of respect for each other. And really, I think everyone, all of the women that I compete with, all of the U.S. women, but also all of the women overseas, like, have all been so encouraging and supportive, and just a ton of mutual admiration for everybody. And I remember Lauren is so nice that the first thing she said to me was that she was so sorry that my rope had come off my sled when I was doing the sled pull. And I don't know.
So you had a little bit of an issue with
Yes. So on my 3rd pull, the rope came flying right off. It was at the point, like, I hadn't even done like 1 on that, portion of the race yet. So then my judge had to run down, like, rehook it, like, and then I was able to start. I started counting instinctually in my head how much time, because I knew I'd be trying to fight for that back.
Smart.
Like, this is the World Championship.
They did give it back to you though, right?
I'm not sure, honestly, if the end time had it back or not. I don't even really remember at that point, but in my head I was like, if this comes down to the wire somehow, like, even if I came in 2nd place, like, I still want those 15 seconds, or whatever the case.
Not because of how far away like the 3rd place person was, but just because that record stands.
Right. And it's just, those are the things that happen in races that are completely out of your control, and you just have to say, okay, this happened, and move on from it.
100%.
But that was the first thing Lauren said to me, was how sorry she was. And she had experienced a sled issue at the European Championships, where on the push, the middle bar kept like toppling over. And so her stack of weights kept like sliding, and they kept fixing it. And they wouldn't just let her go to a different lane, which I was so confused by, because I'm right next to her, so I'm watching all this happen, and I'm like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, she's done 2 down and backs, just let her go do 2 more on a different lane with a sled that's working.
Right. Just to keep it moving.
But, so, I think she understood like how frustrating that is. And that was one thing. So that was the first thing she said. And then it was just really a lot of congratulations to both of us. And we had a really good conversation. Of course, we're like dead tired of having this conversation, but just talking about how important and special it is that our daughters get to see us as women doing this, and also being supportive of each other and not enemies in any way, and really just being able to push each other. Like Lauren pushes me to be better. I hope that I'm doing the same for her. I hope everyone feels that way about me, because I feel that way really about everybody else, and that's just like such a cool thing that we get to have in this space. But it was a lot of like, and I do remember telling her, like, my daughter's 8, so she's watching these on TV. Every time I have a race, she's watching the live stream. Lauren's daughter, I think, is almost 1 or just maybe turned 1, right around there.
Wasn't she pregnant during one of her events?
year? Last year at Worlds, she was pregnant, yeah.
At Worlds?
Yes. And she competed in the Elite 15.
Like late in her pregnancy,
6 months,
like 6 or 7 months, right?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
So, and I would just said to her, like, your daughter's going to look at this someday and just be so in awe of her mom for how strong
Public record.
she is.
It's right there for her to watch forever, yeah.
And I'm so grateful that my daughter gets to see it firsthand and is starting to really understand like what it means. And her daughter's obviously younger, so I just was like,
yeah.
She's going to be so proud of you.
Well, she has to be able to like look at you now, not your daughter, but actually Lauren, and say, okay, well, that's where we're going to be, and how to actually act and know, like where you are in your place in your role with your child at that time.
Yeah.
And it's lovely too that it's like daughter and mom.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And they have, it's so inspirational. And that was a really special moment for us to be able to like watch it, because we're actually watching it live through like the live feeds at like Hyrox stuff. And we had some friends there, obviously from our group that we train with that were there as well. So, we were very tuned in. And then seeing that was just like, I was like, wow, this is bigger than we probably could have ever imagined. And I think it's going to grow so much.
Yeah, I'm hoping it does, but it looks like it is. There's been so many new cities that Hyrox is visiting in this next year. So it seems like everything's moving in a really, really strong direction.
Just New York alone, right?
Yeah.
Like last year, they did it in October and it was just one day, and then having to split it up into 2 days just because of the amount of people that were like registering for it. I mean, that's amazing. It was huge. And it was huge to see for me, especially, not only because it's our first episode for the hybrid experience here and you get to be here, but tying it all in together in the New York kind of like vibe, because we met you at New York Hyrox, right?
Yeah.
And for it to do that. And there's savages here, man. There's people I think that could really, really compete. They just don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I still hear people that have never heard of the event at all.
Yeah. I mean, me a little over a year ago had no idea what this was. I'd never heard of it.
You went from not knowing the event a year ago.
To us. Last probably maybe April, May was when a friend of mine said to me, who is bigger in the OCR community.
Yeah.
And has obviously now gotten into Deka and Hyrox as well. But he said, hey, I've heard of this event and I think you'd be really good at it. And I was like, okay, cool, sure. Like I thought I did New York last year and thought it was kind of like I was just going to do one race. And then...
and you started with the pro, right? You didn't go into the open. You went right into the pro.
Right into the pro, okay. Yes. And I started working with Rich Ryan a few weeks leading up to that. I think we were working together for only about 6 weeks.
It's a hell of a coach.
Yes. And it just was a very natural and really a great pairing for both of us. I think we've now are working together on many projects, but we just get each other, and it's just been a really, really easy partnership working with him. But I went in and I was like, oh yeah, I'll just do one race, and then kind of as I'm going, learning that there's an Elite 15 and there's a World Championship and there's all these other races, and if you are top 15, you can qualify for this and that, and then that's where it really started, like the wheels really started turning for me. I was like, okay, like this is
build on this.
This is something that I can do, and I can pursue at a higher level than I even really had known when I first kind of heard about it. So
I want to talk about that a little bit, actually. I do want to dive into a little bit more of like that process, right? You had that conversation, somebody came up to you and said, you know, you should try this Hyrox. I think you'd really be great at it, right? Fortunately, I mean, like, obviously, right? Have you done events like this before in the past?
No, I had done nothing.
No Dekas, no nothing?
No, at this point, I hadn't really heard of Deka either.
Okay.
I heard of that through really starting training for Hyrox, and just getting starting to get connected to people in the Hyrox community, like Rich and Kent and some of those guys, and then started seeing like all the stuff they were doing, and same with the women. And I had done, right before my first Hyrox race, I actually went and qualified for a Deka mile. And it was like the last weekend to get a time in.
Just to feel it out?
Yeah, I was like, well, like, what do you think, Rich? Should I go for this too? And he was like, yeah, I mean, it's the last weekend. Like, you might as well go for it. I ended up having, I think, the second or third fastest time on the leaderboard for that. Wow. So then I go and I do my first Hyrox race. And I did a 106 with a penalty, a 2-minute penalty, because I had missed a lap going into burpees. As we all know, New York is a very complicated lap course. You know, 4 and change laps is really difficult to keep straight. So
hairpin turns.
Right. Yeah. So I go in, I do a 106. I was conservative and I made a mistake. And in my head, I'm like, okay, like the world record at the time was 103. And in my brain, I'm like, I can get that. Like I just felt it.
Well, you had it.
And I knew, like, right, like, you know, you're kind of doing math and you're like, okay, I probably would have been like around this without the penalty. And if I had done the lap, you know, and you're like, all right, like I'm in the ballpark, right? Like I'm not right there, but I'm in the ballpark and I can get there, you know, and I just kind of knew that about myself. And at that point I was all in. Because I knew I had to be. Yeah. You know, I said, all right, I hadn't really done that much training specifically for this race. I've been doing very similar training for many years. And that's one thing I like really emphasize to people. I think people think I just kind of came out of the woodwork. And I did in a sense from just not knowing about this stuff. But training wise, this has been like really in my wheelhouse for quite a long time. Like I first started pushing sleds when I was 17. So my gym was a very functional fitness gym that I trained at when I was in college and home on breaks.
More training for running though.
More training for running, but I always was very interested in lifting and lifting heavy. Okay. I loved doing that stuff. So I was doing, you know, crazy amounts of walking lunges and prowler sleds and hand over hand sled pulls and a lot of that stuff really at a pretty young age. So like just having that like background
for this event.
Well, it seems like it was just a very natural fit. But after New York, it was like, I'm all in. Yeah. Like I think most people's first race, they get that itch, like you experience it and it's such a cool, just the vibe, the venue, like the layout, the support, all the people there. Very, very attractive, you know, and it just sucks you in. You're like, I'm in. Like, I want to keep doing
it. Totally does. It totally does. And they have the right people, I think, in place too.
Definitely.
You know, you got like the E-Rock, right? Yeah. Like the MC from like, I mean, this guy can amp up any room. Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable, you know, and it's a great production, you know, when you kind of get in there, like the music and everything, the vibe, when they got you in the tunnel and they're getting you all psyched up for it and stuff. And like there's nervous energy in the air, but it's really exciting. I love everything about it. I was sold 100%. I was going to do October last year, and I would have been able to see you actually, you know, perform that live, but I didn't get an opportunity to do that. And so this year I had to jump in on it. You know what I mean? And that's when I actually reached out to Taylor and those guys over at OG, and I was like, hey, and Charlie Maldonado, just an unbelievable, you know, dude that like trains really, really hard like for these events. And I was like, are you guys training for this? And they're like, yeah, man, come on, let's go. Let's train for this, you know? And the next thing you know, it was just like more and more people were adding. Yeah. Next thing you know, we had like 30 plus, you know, people signed up.
Oh, it was so just seeing your crew there, like very, very cool. Like that's I love that stuff. That's what I'm all about. And there were so many gyms just like heavily represented at New York.
Yeah, shout out Alpha Fit Club who was there. My
Very
boy
cool.
Sully, unbelievable. And there was actually just a lot of people talking about the New York event, even from outside guys that couldn't even, come to it. And I think that there was, because David McGeeta was there, as well. And I think that he had just come out of just an unfortunate situation at Worlds, with his back and what he was dealing with, and to come to New York, and it was just a fun vibe.
Yeah.
It was very East Coast.
Yeah.
You could feel that.
Yeah, definitely.
Him coming from like DC. But what really kind of like, I think, not necessarily like it matters to me, but what's really important, and I was telling you earlier too, like I love the action. I love the fact that we can, go out there and like do all like the fitness stuff and be, hardcore and have people, watch and cheer you on. But like any good story, the origin story is kind of like where I think I'm, drawn to.
Yeah.
And I'm dying to know, you're from Binghamton, New York originally?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
First of all, where is that? And what goes on up there? Because I don't know anything about Binghamton, New York. Like, what's the altitude like? I mean, is it?
Oh, no, we're not.
There's nothing like that.
No, yeah. So we're like 4 hours north from here, Long Island. Okay. And I'm about an hour south of Syracuse. And we're right on the PA border, basically.
Right on.
So yeah, it's honestly a pretty small fitness community, I would say. Thankfully, because of kind of the journey that I've taken, all of my friends have jumped on board and already were kind of in this type of community to begin with. My great friend Jarrett Newby owns Noob Sanity, which is an OCR course. He's got a huge crew up there. A lot of them are starting to get more into the hybrid scene as well, so doing the Hyrox and Deka. So my friends, thankfully, have really jumped on board to train themselves, but also to support me and my training on this journey, and have traveled with me and come to many of the races that I've done. So incredibly thankful for them, because otherwise I do so much solo just because we don't have any affiliates near us. The gym that I work at is very more like middle-aged clientele.
Sure. Not
sure if this would be something up their alley. And maybe, and that could very well change, but it's, it is a little bit of a smaller community just in general. So that's kind of like where it began. And I ended up back in my hometown, and my family's still there and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, but that inspiration has to come from somewhere, right? Like you're motivated to go out there and push yourself the way that you do, because as casual as you are here and we're having this conversation, you're always so gracious with like talking to people, advice, and you're so gracious with your time. But I imagine that it's not, when you're training, there's a very different Meg that kind of...
Oh, yeah. My friends would tell you that I, like, everyone who thinks I'm so nice, and I am, but when I'm in train workout mode, like, that is a whole different person, you know? And my friends are like, yeah, she is great, but you haven't seen, like, workout Meg. Workout Meg is very intense.
I love that. What pushes you to be so intense?
And it's also just, I think, when you're a parent, especially, you have such a limited amount of time. So like if it's go time, it's go time. And I have to be able to turn the switch on very quickly.
Right.
And that's just something too that I've learned in this process with really upping my training volume. It's like, especially now, there is no wiggle room. There is no time to waste. It's got to be like, I show up and I'm ready to go and give it 110%. And that's hard to do, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes too, because it's just habits,
Yeah. And your background is 100% specifically mostly in running when you were competing younger.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And strength training was always a part of that, only because you prioritized it.
Right.
Right? Like that was...
Totally. Yeah. Not something that we were really encouraged to be doing as distance runners back in 12, 13 years ago. God. It just, at that point, very... kind of that old school mentality of like, if you want to be fast, you don't want to be big, right? You don't want to be too muscular, you'll be slower. Like just kind of like that very old school running kind of mindset. And honestly, for me, I love challenging myself, and I always have. So like I loved learning things in the gym. And I also kind of knew my own strengths, and I knew that like this is actually what I need to be healthy. Anytime I wasn't lifting, something would happen. I'd get injured. I'd have aches and pains here and there. Something would flare up. And I literally knew that the gym was the answer for me always. And so
you always felt better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it just, like I said, like I was healthier, you know, from the running perspective. But yeah, I started as a distance runner in college. I was running 80 miles a week. Crazy.
Wow.
I do cross country, indoor and outdoor track. And then really after college, kind of was a little tired of running at that point, and really was able to just kind of for a few years, especially after I had my daughter, just doing it for me because I loved it and not competing so much. But then in my later 20s, I really started like leaning back into that competitive athlete side, and I started really running a lot. Road racing, and started really running some of the best times of my life in my late Saturday night, and then raced go doubles on Sunday at Hyrox because why do anything easy, you know?
It doesn't make any sense.
Just doesn't. But I think the mixed modality type competitions where they're endurance based, but they're also strength based, that's like exactly where I feel like I exist in this space. Battle Bunker was really cool because it was totally different than anything we've really seen so far.
Yeah.
So huge props to Hunter and Austin Alexander, because I think they've got a really cool concept going. And I've had some really good discussions with them on like what they want to do with it. So that's exciting. But like Deka Fit, my best road run race is 5K. That's what that has in it. And I've gone sub 17. I've run low 17s. I'm very much right in that kind of area. Actually, 2 days after Battle Bunker, I ran an 18 flat and then a 520 road mile, like dead tired. So I was like, okay, exhausted. Like we're in a really good spot.
Right.
So for me, like that's exciting because Hyrox is a longer event. I obviously feel like I'm very strong in it, but having the running aspect really be what I feel very confident doing in Deka is going to be a really fun, like different type of challenge. So I'm really excited. I'll be doing the PA Deka Fit, and then I'll do Orlando.
But it did say that based on the information that it has from when it started to understand, it has no idea what hybrid fitness is, but it took a guess.
Okay.
And it put it all together, and it was actually really, really wild to see, you know, what it said, because there was all these different modalities and all these different systems that were working. So it was really cool and a lot of it actually seemed to be the same, right? Which was running and strength, conditioning, and all that stuff together, right? So any one of these could be, right? CrossFit could be hybrid, which it is in a sense, right? But then you have like Savage Race, right? Which is a little bit more kind of like obstacle course and hybrid. So there's a lot of different things that kind of like fall underneath it. For you, what does hybrid fitness mean, or hybrid fitness racing?
Yeah, so I think I do CrossFit and I love CrossFit. I've never dabbled much in the OCR community. I do tend to feel those two things are very niche-y on their own. I think it's really the mixture of both of those things and running, and less, maybe a little less complex.
Yeah.
You know, you have so much complexity with CrossFit, you know, so much of the gymnastic skills, so much of the really nitpicky barbell work.
Skill set.
Very, very specific skill set. And I feel that same way about obstacle course racing. Like, you can be a great runner, but if you're terrible at obstacles, like it's not going to go well for you. So you really have to be, it's just so I really think it is kind of the blend of all of it. And I think like an event can't have too much of one specific thing, in my opinion, to be considered like true hybrid.
Right.
So like, sure, there can be barbell work, but there has to be like an equal amount of like running or endurance portion, and an equal amount of like maybe more functional strength or functional fitness. I think it has to have an element of all of the things to be considered hybrid. And that's just kind of like what I've seen and what I think. And there are some really cool events popping up. I'm doing an event in West Virginia called Rally in the Valley. They have a few they have like one CrossFit style Metcon, but it's like light enough where you don't have to be like, it's not like heavy power cleans or something. Right. It's like light enough where you can kind of.
It's not as advanced.
Exactly. Right. So, and then but there's like a stand-up paddleboard race.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. And then in a lake, and then there's like a trail run. And then there's, that's like, I think those are the things we're going to starting to see is like a just literal bit of everything. A little obstacle, a little trail, a little speed, a little Metcon, like a little, maybe a barbell lift of some sort.
I'm no snob when it comes to like, looking at some of the OCR events and saying like, oh, I don't know, all the mud and the fire and the this and the that, like it's not necessary. But I was so attracted to the Hyrox event specifically because I believe, especially in our community here, like your guys' gym too, right? You have like middle-aged people that are just like, like me. I'm going to be 50 in less than a year, and anyone can do a Hyrox.
Right.
All right. Like if you can do lunges, if you can do wall balls, if you can run, a little bit, anyone could actually do that event, can do that sport. And then your fitness capacity actually will delegate how well and how much you'll advance, in it, which is really, really cool. But there isn't anything specifically in that like will take you a very long time to learn. Right. Technique, maybe a little bit here and there. Right. Like you have your specific things with the wall ball that you like to do, right? Getting that full depth or how you push the sled. From time to time, we talked a little bit about that for a different, article, which I hope, will see the light of day. But, all those things are so doable for like, anybody just off the street, which is really, really great.
Right.
And then obviously getting ranked by time makes a lot of sense. I understood, Hyrox right away, right? Because it's so complete in that sense where it took me a little bit to really fully kind of like get my head around Deka. I'm like, okay, there's a Deka Fit, there's a Deka Strong. I was like, what exactly is it? Obviously, Deka, I speak Greek. I actually am Greek, so I know that Deka means 10.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming there's 10 events in all of them. So some of those things, are, just based off of assumptions, right? And then Battle Bunker got even a little bit more confusing for me too, and I haven't really fully wrapped my head around that too. But they're also just a group of different events that you have to do, and it's also ranked by time. Is that correct?
Yes, by time or by like reps. Like we had an AMRAP, bench, and deadlift, and so it's easy. It's
like the 60-second deadlift.
Yeah, it's like if you got 30, so and so got 20, like they win. You know what I mean? That type of thing.
So then it's like a point system from there.
It did a point system.
Gotcha.
And it's honestly, I think that's a cool style because we've seen it working in CrossFit. You go to the games, if you win, you get 130 points.
Wow.
Or whatever the case may be, however many it is.
Yeah.
But I think that type of system works pretty well. But yeah, Hyrox is very easy to once you grasp it and you see it, it's very easy to understand. I also really appreciate the timing system that they have where you can go in, see every single split from start to finish. You have your rock zone time. You have all of the data. Having that data is very important, I think. So I love.
They started as a German company, right?
Yes,
it makes total sense.
Right,
I mean, like
exactly. It's like right up their alley.
Right up their alley. They're perfect at organizing things like that and the infrastructure at all.
Great. It's like it's so easy to see on paper. Okay, this was a struggle. This is where I excelled. This is where I did okay, or here's where the wheels fell off. It's very easy to do that. So it's really nice having that.
Oh, 100%. We took ours and we looked at it and said, okay, well, now we know what we're going to work on, during training, obviously, so you can see that. What do you think, Hyrox, if they start throwing some big sponsorship money toward that event, right? Are we going to see other people?
I think I saw this question.
I was curious myself because I don't know. Like, are there some people like kind of sitting back on, like in behind the curtains, waiting for the big money to kind of come in for them to come in and just start running it?
I mean, I hope that I'm competing against the best people that there are right now. I'm 100%. Sure there's going to be people who. I say this all the time. There could be 12 new Meg Jacobys next year, for all I know. So, like, obviously, I'm just
not likely.
I'm just working. So, the athletes can do well. I still don't know that a high-level CrossFit athlete would come over and be incredibly successful in something like this.
Right, just automatically.
All of the running, all of, you know, and that comes down to like body types, you know, like you don't have to be, you know, in CrossFit, these women they're deadlifting over 500 pounds. They're, you know,
amazing. Yeah.
300 pounds. Like it's insane.
It's fantastic to watch. Literally the word, like fantastical. Almost,
exactly.
sense,
but then to have that type of body type where you can handle that type of weight stuff and then come into where you now have to run 5 to 6 miles very fast. It's just a totally different type of athlete, you know? So I don't know. I mean, I love to see this grow. I want to see it be successful. The more successful it is, the better it is for me too, because it's going to continue to push me to my max capacity, right? And that's like I don't know where my ceiling is yet. So I want to find out. So
you must have some idea as to like where you plan on taking it next, though.
Yeah.
With Hyrox specifically, right? Like,
I mean,
I have another goal set in mind.
I have a few.
A few? You're gonna keep them under wraps for a little bit?
No, I just want to keep. I like having records. I think they're great. They are meant to be broken. And I plan to keep breaking them.
Yeah.
So that's
we
plan
to keep on watching you break them.
Thanks.
Because it's really, really awesome to see you out there. You have this great balance while you're out there on the course where like you're having fun and you look like you're having fun.
Yeah.
As opposed to
that's good.
It's really true, actually. Like
I'm glad to see that.
Yeah. And it's not because you're not taking it seriously. Like you're pushing stuff, but I think that it's so great for the audience. And how wild is that, first of all, that people are so behind just watching you work out?
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's really, really fun.
Yeah.
And I, having to experience it myself firsthand as well, when I had so much support there, we had such a big community there, and people just like cheering each other on and having a blast. I'm like, I'm just having a workout.
Yeah.
Really tough
I know. It's funny when you break it down. It's like, I just did a hard workout.
Yep.
Like, that's like really just what it is.
One of the toughest too. Like,
it is.
It's incredibly humbling.
Right. Yeah.
On any level, right? Like when you think about it, it just gets harder and harder as you advance because you're just going to be doing it faster or using more weight.
Yeah.
And who knows where they might take this event and how they might advance it, in the future. I can't necessarily see them doing too much to it. You don't want to mess around with something that's already working so great.
Yeah. Definitely.
But yeah, I think it's definitely going to get a lot more competitive. There's so much information coming out now about it because everyone wants to talk about it, right? One of the reasons why I started, the hybrid experience was to kind of like showcase a little bit more of like, how can we grow this here in New York?
Yeah.
How can we develop it more in New York? But there's people from everywhere, watching, as we're posting and as we're even doing this, and people that are going to be watching this in Germany and in Europe and talking about you specifically, the world record holder. Where they're going to take the conversation, I think we can't even imagine that yet.
Yeah.
We don't, we have no idea.
Yeah.
But to watch them kind of like grow the production of it, I'm sure is just, it's amazing to watch from the outside, but then also being a part of it. We're going to be in Chicago. Coming up. Yeah. So it's going to be really cool. Too. I hope so. Yeah. It'd be great. It would be great to have some more New York love out there for sure.
Yeah.
Another question that we saw that was posted on the Instagram, which was actually kind of funny, was your diet. People are very, very interested.
Everyone wants to know what I eat.
People want to know.
And the whole thing. And it's funny. I've had this chat with a few people. I am a very clean eater for the most part. I actually, once I started this journey, I realized how difficult it was cooking on top of training. I was like, I cannot sustain this. So I actually get a meal prep service. I get 12 meals every 2 weeks. It kind of like is the filler for like the nights that it's like, okay, it's going to be a struggle. Like Mila has this, I have this, like whatever. Or it's just an easy grab out the door on the way to work. I do work full time, which is also something that I think
you're a coach full time.
Do
right?
No, I work for a Department of Defense contractor. Actually.
No way. So you got like a job.
I got a big girl job, and then I coach on the side. I'm a hustler.
You're a mover and a shaker.
I always have a multitude of things that I'm doing, but
yeah, you're taking advantage of all 24 hours.
I am. I don't know how sometimes. Sometimes when I'm like on the bike, I'm like doing my programming for like my clients. Like
don't question
killing
it.
2 birds with one stone. But yeah, so diet. So yeah, like it's hard, you know, you work and there's just not that much time, but I do tend to meal prep. Like I said, I get the service too. But I love my really bad for you Starbucks coffee.
Right.
I'm never giving it up.
Dessert coffee.
I don't care. I earned it, you know,
earn it.
and I limit myself because they are not cheap. So it's like, you know, I give myself like 2 of those a week, but I drink 1 cup of coffee a day. Big on creatine, BCAAs. I'm doing that. I actually mix those 2 things together post workout. Hugely important. I work very hard for my muscles. I do not want to lose them. And when you're doing such a high level of endurance training, running, rowing, skiing,
You got to fuel.
You have to fuel. So biggest thing is just fueling. I'm eating probably 3,000 plus calories a day. I don't really like nitty gritty track. I just kind of know based on like my meals, I know that I buy are about 800-900 calories a meal. They're high protein, high carb. So I just kind of like baseline ballpark it, but I am also, I am a spoon in the Nutella jar before bed every day person.
Gotta get that little taste.
I need a little something sweet. I have a big sweet tooth.
Yeah.
I also feel like, okay, realistically, I probably need another 500 calories, so I might as well just get it in something I like. That's kind of my brain.
I'm going to put you on to something right now.
Okay.
You're going to thank me.
Oh, no. Is this going to be bad or good?
No, this is going to be good, actually.
Okay.
This is going to be really, really
Am I going to get it?
because it's got the right macros. I hope so.
Okay.
I hope that you can do it because it's so good. Not that Nutella is bad. Nutella is delicious. But a really good buddy of mine started a company, and you may already know about it. It's called Creatures of Habit, and they do an oatmeal base brand, right? Which I do as an overnight oats kind of thing.
Yeah.
Got a bunch of different flavors like chocolate and chocolate peanut butter, vanilla, all this stuff is so good. And the macros are right.
Okay.
Like, I think it's like 30 grams of like carbs and then like 40 grams of protein. I probably could be getting that wrong.
Yeah.
But it's really out of this world.
You're going to have to link
and it's,
me up.
I swear to you, it's like pudding.
Yeah.
Like delicious.
Okay. I'm about it.
Pudding, especially overnight, just like right out of the fridge. I eat it. It's called One Meal or Meal One from Creatures of Habit with a K. And even though I don't have it as my first meal, it's definitely my first meal after training.
Yeah.
Because it's got the right macros. And it's like, man, I deserve this.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
I already like it. So
yeah, I'm gonna put you on. I'm gonna put you on.
Good.
Shout out to Michael Chernow. He's out there doing his thing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable product, and it'll help you, fuel it up.
Yeah, definitely.
And who knows, maybe you can just throw a little Nutella in there.
Yeah, I might have to.
I love it. Is this your first time in Long Island?
I haven't been here in a long time. My college roommate was from Bayshore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, not far from here at all, as a matter of fact.
So I've been, but it's been many years.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And you guys are starting a little thing of your own with Rich and with Kent.
Yeah,
right?
Meg and the boys.
Yeah.
We're not calling it that, but we should.
You really should. It kind of like, you guys have like a Deuce of Hazzard kind of thing going on right now, which is...
So we're working on the name. We're still shopping the name a bit. So
they did a really good job with their
loved their idea. I had some really
Mile Hybrid, right?
So many funny suggestions though. I loved it.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping they they invite their favorite Hyrox girl on the the pod a few times. But
I know they will.
Yeah, we're working on launching an app, a training app, the 3 of us. Like I said, I think Rich and I have so far been such a great team up, like just a great collaborative effort. He programs like a few of my workouts and then I kind of have control of the rest. And we just like, we'll message each other and I'll say, hey, like I did this today, or hey, I added this in, like, and he's like, oh, I love that. And it's just such an awesome, like bouncing of ideas. Yeah. And Kent is the same way. Like he and Kent both really have, again, we all come from the running background first and really got into the strength side. Kind of like after, but running is where we really all started. So we have very similar ideas, very similar training styles.
And personality.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, it's been great having them just as examples. I've had some really good convos with, like Kent has talked to me off the ledge like a couple times, like at Worlds. He's like, Meg, it's just a workout.
Right.
And I'm like, damn, you're right.
Yeah.
having those guys and having their experience has been great. They've been super awesome friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're really excited. I think, like I said, I think there's so much knowledge that we can share amongst the three of us. It's going to have all of our programs in it. It's extremely affordable.
Yep.
And so it's one of those things you can say, hey, I want to do Ryan Kent's workout of the day today. And then tomorrow you can be like, I'm going to do Meg's workout today, you know, or whatever.
And all that will work together.
Rich Ryan's running program for the next 8 weeks.
All on one platform.
All on one platform.
Wow.
So it's very cool. And we still, even though we train similarly for certain things, I am like a huge lifter. I've given them a lot of tips on that kind of stuff. So like you can do Rich's running plan, Ryan Kent's workout of the day, and then you can be like, I'm going to follow Meg's conjugate 8-week program, you know, for powerlifting. Like there's so much cool stuff. And can be for anybody, not just necessarily hybrid. Of course, that's the athlete that's probably going to will appeal to most. But there's going to be a lot of great stuff in it. Yeah, you know. So
well, you definitely have
I'm excited.
One person here for sure that's going to be downloading that app. Because I mean, if you want to train like a beast, you got to go with the beast. Yeah, that's just the way I see it.
Yeah.
There's so much coming on in pipe for you. I mean, all this is moving so fast, and in that, I'm sure that there's probably brands that are just hitting you up all the time and just trying to like get on your side. How are you juggling that? Like are you?
Yeah, it's funny. So sponsored by Powerlift.
Yes. So delicious, by the way.
Yeah, they really are awesome. And like I said, it's a busy life. If you've seen my ad that I've done for them, I'm all about ease.
Like an actual ad?
It was right after Anaheim. Yeah. Like look a mess, but I have a very busy lifestyle, so I love that I can just grab this and run out the door. And I don't have to bring a shaker bottle, my like almond milk or something to mix, like protein in a bag. Like, you know, we've all done that a million times.
After a tough workout, just to start filling up with
just having this is like, it's awesome.
It's delicious. You can have it cold, which is really great.
Oh, they have to. I like them ice cold. Yeah.
I agree.
So you know what? It's one of those things. When I first started this, I was like, oh my God, I have to get sponsored. I have to start getting sponsored. Like, how am I going to afford flying here, flying here? And like, you're not making money doing these unless you podium, right? Like and that's why I'm always so in awe of people who are just doing this because they love it and as their hobby. Like, you are investing so much more than just your time. It's a lot of money, like, because you practically have to fly everywhere to race, other than like, thankfully we get like one, maybe a year we can drive to. So I give people so much credit. And I remembered being like, what if I don't get, like, what if nobody wants to work with me? Like, what do I do? And so things have started to happen, which is really cool. However, I really recognized early that if I wanted to make any money doing this or really just be able to continue competing the way that I would like to, I needed to grab the bull by the horns and make something happen for myself. Yeah. So that's when I really realized, like, I'm super passionate about coaching. Programming is like, my brain is nonstop programming. Yeah. Like, I get messages all the time. Hey, what was and I'm like, boom, 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 here's a workout, you know? And I love doing that. I've been a running coach for 6 years. I'm a strength coach too. And I said, you know what? Why don't I just start doing this? I've been doing this for years, you know? And so then again, Rich was very graciously like, yo, let's team up. Like, absolutely. Let's do it together.
Now all you got to do is send them a link.
You're right.
Send everyone that hits you up for a workout. You're like, here's a link.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I post a lot of the workouts I do. It's like, not just selling myself, because that's really not even what it is. I've been doing it the whole time that I've been doing this. Yeah. It's really just like, hey, here's a really awesome workout I just did. I'm happy to share it. And like, if you do it, tag me. I love it. I love seeing it. I love seeing people trying it. Yeah. And just helping.
It's a very big share type of community that's out there. And it's still so new and it's still so fresh and young. you know, the hybrid kind of like style of training specifically for events like Hyrox or for Deka, which can be similar in that sense for the training, you know?
Yeah.
But I can definitely see, you know, people really attaching themselves to that, because who better to learn from? I mean, that's just the truth.
Yeah.
Who's your competition right now? Like, who do you really see besides Lauren right now for Hyrox specifically? Who's out there right now that you're like, I'm really looking forward to kind of like going elbow to elbow with this person?
Michaela Norman from Sweden has been, she had a really great first season. She and I have a very similar story in regards to like, we just hopped right in and things kind of took off. I broke the world record my second race. She ended up breaking mine in her first race.
Right on. So you go back to back.
Yeah, and she and I teamed up and we did women's doubles. We have the world record in that together. So currently, so she's another person that super kind, sweet person, came from CrossFit actually.
Right on.
Definitely more of the endurance athlete type of CrossFit athlete.
Right.
So I think the transition wasn't too difficult for her to do. And she had some health stuff going on at the end of this first season. So I didn't get to race against her at the World Championships, but you know, she works and she's putting in work. So I'm thinking, absolutely. You know, and it's a friendly eye. It's like, I am so glad to see her be like her healthy again and that she's able to get back to the grind. But she's proven that she's no joke. So next year, that's another person that I'll be keeping an eye on.
You know, one of the things that like CrossFit, you know, has done so well, especially with the CrossFit Games too, is kind of like ushering in the next generation of people, you know?
Yeah.
And we've seen that on the guy side as much as we've seen it on the women's side. There's no doubt, right?
Yeah.
They've always been able to kind of like see who's coming up. We're not really hearing that much yet. For Hyrox specifically, or for these kinds of like hybrid races. Right now, there's a handful of people, and it's basically the Elite 15 on both sides that everyone's kind of like keeping their attention on. When do you think that's going to happen?
It's interesting because we have a few women, even now, that are young. Like Miriam Van Roort, she is, I think, 22.
Wow.
And also been incredibly successful. I think her PR is like 61 or 62 maybe.
Yeah.
Crazy good. And she's podiumed this year at European Championships, North American Championships. Like, she's done a great job. Vivian Tafudo, I think, is 25, maybe 26. So we definitely have like some, but on the men's side, there's really not much of that at all. It's really like 30 and up for the most part. I think it's one of those things where potentially, I mean, when you look at things from a running perspective, the women right now, if you're 30 to like 35, we're in our like peak running performance time. That's 100%. That's like, just from the running standpoint, that's what I've known my whole life, right? And my best times, especially in longer runs, were late 20s to right now. So it's one of those things where with this sport having so much of that involved, I do wonder if we'll see really young people being this good, because I think that the build together of being strong and having the running piece, I think, can take a long time. So it's one of those things, you can have people young that are like phenomenal runners, but can they push 400 pounds?
Yes.
So it's that kind of thing. So I think it'll be, I don't want to say an old man's game, because that's not right. I'm not old, but I do think it's is a little bit of a later thing, maybe, to be really, really, really successful at it.
What's probably going to happen is that they're going to get attracted to the sport itself and how to train for it. Right. And then they're going to come up in that environment. Yes. Right? So these 17 and 18-year-olds.
Figuring that out, like, how do you, what's the best way to train for this?
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, maybe down the road in like 10 years, we see like 19, 20-year-olds like really, really
that have been training a decade
and they've been doing it since they were 13.
And then we're going to see those numbers really.
Yeah, that'll be really exciting.
Yeah, it would be exciting.
Yeah.
They'd have to make some changes.
They would. They would. And then like people like Lauren and I are like, can be
talk about Hunter, the good old days.
Hunter, and we can all be like the Tia Toomey and the Matt Frasers of Hyrox. You know, they're like the OG.
That's happening already.
of CrossFit.
That's happening already.
Well, yeah, but that'll be cool, you know?
Yeah,
someday I'll just be like, I broke 60 first. Yay. And that's like all I'll have. They'll be running like 54 at that point.
Well, when they're all going to their Google machine to figure out exactly how to do what, they're going to be looking you up, you know? Because they want to,
yeah.
Maybe. I can definitely see that happening for sure.
Yeah.
It was so great having you here.
Thanks.
I absolutely
love it. Pleasure.